After several hours of explanation, Jin had summarized everything they were facing for Enya. There is a force targeting the contract signer of Asmil. Their next likely target is you. Of course, Enya chose to trust young Master Jin. She believed this would be an exciting adventure between a little girl, some dragon bodyguards, and a prince who is young Master Jin. Jin thought it was fortunate that Enya was quick to understand this, even though she was more optimistic than he had imagined. After a few more minutes of discussion, everyone decided to depart as soon as possible. Enya said, "How about we set off tomorrow? After all, I just need to say goodbye to my 7-year-old brother and my dog Poopy, so I should go back and prepare my luggage, right?" Quick-Intel replied, "Yes, prepare." Enya cheerfully went back to her room and promised to meet everyone tomorrow. Quick-Intel and Jin decided that on the Academy's side, they would use the excuse that Enya was sick because if they told her to drop out, they would stir up the whole area. Just then, someone knocked on the door asking for firewood. Quick-Intel heard it and intended to go open the door, but was stopped by Jin. Jin said, "What guest comes here just to ask for firewood? I suspect the person outside seems to belong to the Special Forces of Bemin. It must be related to Miss Enya. They have probably been lying in wait around here for a long time and are trying to figure out who the newcomer is." Quick-Intel heard that someone was following her. Enya, angry, opened the door without saying much and grabbed the neck of the person in front of her, asking, "Are you from the Bemin Special Task Force? Who sent you here?" At the same time, footsteps were heard coming from inside the house. A man appeared and claimed that he was the one who sent the other person. "Now can you let him go?" He threatened that if Quick-Intel killed that person, the Special Task Force would arrive immediately. The Silver Dragon noticed that the red-haired person seemed to be the leader, so it was enough to deal with him. While speaking, she reached out and lunged to attack him. Bang! An explosion occurred right inside the house. After the powerful attack from the Silver Dragon, the red-haired young man stood still. He turned to ask, "Is this enough to soothe your anger?" Jin, standing nearby, felt a chill at the sight. To her surprise, the man was still able to stand firm after that blow. Looking closely, it was clear that he was not an ordinary member of the Special Task Force. With the red mask, only Special Commanding Groots were allowed to wear it. Moreover, the sword he wielded was very meticulous. The only person who met all these criteria could only be the Emperor's right-hand man, the commander of the 3rd team of the Bemin Special Task Force, codenamed Raz. A person rumored to possess exceptional swordsmanship in Run-Kandel, Jin was certain that he was at least an 8-star or higher. Raz said to Quick-Intel, "What I do is necessary because we need to confirm the identities of those guests." Quick-Intel was not easily willing to let this go. Who would be so rude as to barge into someone else's house and then expect to leave? Is the Miss Enya that Raz mentioned the one who just left this place? If you let her go out alone at night like this, it could be very dangerous. He directly threatened Quick-Intel. He also added that if they fought now, even though she might defeat him, she wouldn't be able to help Enya if something bad happened. "So this time I will let it go, but remember there won't be a next time. You should know to prioritize the most important person to you, right? You are risking your life to protect something, and you must be ready to lose everything because of your wrong choice." Outside, Raz spoke to his subordinates that he had confirmed the appearance of the suspicious individuals and requested to return to investigate their identities. In addition, all observations of the Guardian Dragon will be temporarily suspended. One of the subordinates wondered, "Isn't this the time to keep track of Quick-Intel and the suspicious individuals?" Raz replied, "Now is not the time to provoke the Silver Dragon. That would only make things worse." As he spoke, he brought his hand to his mouth to rub the wound Quick-Intel had just inflicted. In summary, you need to stop the close-range surveillance until you detect any unusual behavior from them. Then report to me. Inside the house, Quick-Intel was blaming herself for not realizing that they had been followed for so long. If Jin and Muraken hadn't come, she might still have underestimated their power. Now she was even more determined to move away from here as soon as tomorrow. The next morning, Jin and Quick-Intel were looking towards the boat that Enya had been taken on. They felt reassured that Enya would likely reach Ticken safely, as Muraken was accompanying her. But little did they know this was the real concern. Now it's time to contact Vetta. She is the guardian dragon of the deputy head of the Zipples clan. She might know a lot of things. A week later, Muraken completed the escort mission and returned to prepare for the battle with Vetta. He admired Quick-Intel's house, surprised that she had taken such good care of it. They had built it together in the past, but now it was just a memory. At that moment, Quick-Intel returned and announced that she had received a response from Vetta. She will arrive tomorrow evening. The next evening, on a barren island south of Bemin Beach, Quick-Intel was waiting for Vetta to arrive. If she kept her promise, Vetta would come here alone. Quick-Intel had made it clear that the reason for summoning her was to ask about Latry from Asmil. If she was truly pretending, she would surely be dealt with by the Silver Dragon. Regardless, Run-Kandel believed that with the honor of a dragon clan, she would surely come here by herself. However, Jin thought otherwise. He believed that Vetta would not come here alone. If the Zipples clan had indeed kidnapped Latri and was plotting to establish dubious contracts, they would definitely be prepared before arriving. Just as he finished speaking, Winged Dragon Vetta also arrived, and as predicted, she was not alone, but was accompanied by Andrew. He introduced himself to Run-Kandel. I am the deputy head of the Zipples clan, the representative of the god Melzer, Andrew Zipples. Seeing this, Run-Kandel angrily asked Vetta, "Didn't you promise to come alone?" Vetta explained, "When I received the letter from the Silver Dragon, I was with Andrew, so I hope you understand." Vetta asked about Enya. She wanted to meet the contract signer with the time god Ulta, while also inquiring about where Latri was at that moment. "Hurry up and answer, Vetta. You took Latri away a year ago, right? Since then, the contract signer of Asmil has not been able to find the guardian dragon." Hearing this, Vetta cunningly replied, "I wonder how this Lady Silver Dragon would like me to respond. It seems Latri is doing quite well now." Run-Kandel was furious to hear this because the winged dragon Vetta dared to mock her. The two, Manhwa and Jin, who were hiding nearby, also didn't expect her to be so arrogant, and it seemed that they had run out of patience. Winged Dragon Vetta unleashed her power and made a proposal. "Run-Kandel, if you hand over the contract signer, I will spare your life." But Run-Kandel definitely wouldn't agree to that anyway. After all, you are just an old chameleon. Hearing this, of course, who wouldn't be angry? Vetta immediately attacked Run-Kandel. Run-Kandel also had a suggestion. "Quickly return Latri here, and I will ensure Vetta dies peacefully." Andrew, hearing this from outside, sneered, "It seems this Lady Silver Dragon is dodging Vetta's attacks quite easily. So now, behold my power." As he spoke, he raised his staff to summon mana, creating a massive shield made of his mana. Jin was also amazed by the scene. This is the first time I've seen the power of a 9-star mage after being resurrected. Andrew Zipples, although he had been humiliated by the Run-Kandel family at the ball, was still a member of the powerful Zipples clan. Inside, after creating a protective shield, Andrew began attacking Run-Kandel. Seeing this, she intended to fly up to evade the attack, but it seemed the wind here had been controlled by Vetta. Thus, Run-Kandel had to endure the strikes from the old man Andrew. At the same time, above them, Vetta also began to approach. She gathered her power and sneered. "Run-Kandel has never been my match." Run-Kandel found this amusing and laughed. Is that all it takes for someone to brag so much? Andrew quickly summoned lightning to coordinate with his guardian dragon. Immediately afterward, 2 attacks, one of wind and one of lightning, were directed at the silver dragon Run-Kandel outside. Seeing this, Jin thought she was in danger and quickly shouted, "Murakhan, go help her." But Murakhan calmly replied, "It's not time yet. Who understands silver dragons better than I do?" Just as stated inside, the silver dragon was also showcasing its power. Time had been frozen, and even the attacking magic stood still. Andrew was shocked to see this. It had been a long time since an old man like him had witnessed such a scene. He then said, "Vetta, quickly attack again." But no matter how much he said it, it was useless because his guardian dragon could no longer move. Due to the ability to manipulate time, Run-Kandel charged toward them at the same time. She grabbed Vetta's tail and slammed it hard down to the ground. Now everyone knows who has the upper hand, right? No class of dragon would dare to be arrogant in front of a time-manipulating class. Seeing this, Andrew shouted, "Run-Kandel, stop right now." But who did he think he was to command a stop? Prepare your tools. Next is you. Although she said that deep down, Run-Kandel knew that defeating Vetta had already consumed too much power. To finish off that sorcerer, she would need the help of Jin and Murakhan. At that moment, Andrew pulled something out from his body. Murakhan was surprised when he saw the object because if he was not mistaken, it was the Origin Stone. This was impossible because it had been destroyed thousands of years ago. How could such an item be in the hands of that old man? Andrew summoned the monster from the Origin Stone and mocked Run-Kandel. "You were born as a guardian dragon and have probably always considered yourself strong, but that is just an illusion. Humanity, dragons, and even deities must all submit under the Zipples clan. Run-Kandel, accept that and do not resist." On this side, Murakhan tells Jin about the Origin Stone. The Origin Stone is a divine artifact created by the gods as a precaution in case the world is ever destroyed. However, it was the gods themselves who destroyed that stone because its power was too terrifying. It was so powerful that it not only protected the world, but could also destroy it. After finishing his story, Murakhan immediately wanted to rush to Run-Kandel to assist her. While Andrew was still engrossed in conversation with the silver dragon, Murakhan had already arrived. The old man, seeing a black dragon here, was extremely surprised, as he knew there were only 2 black dragons in the world. Looking at its appearance, he guessed this was probably Murakhan from Run-Kandel, So he had awakened after thousands of years of slumber. Continuing, he looked at Jin and guessed, surely he is the one who made a pact with the dark god, the youngest son who just recently left his parents' embrace, Jin Runcandel. After saying that, he smiled with a sinister expression. From the beginning, he intended to devour the one who signed the contract with Ulta, but now it seemed the meal was richer than expected. Then he commanded the monster within the stone to awaken Vetta using some ancient letters. After that, Vetta awoke stronger than before. She was surrounded by the dark power of the origin stone, and then she rushed to greet Murakan. Seeing that Murakan was much weaker than before, Vetta planned to use a finishing blow to send her friend back to eternal sleep. However, Murakan was still able to easily dodge her attack and counter. Just as expected, it had to be this way. If it were too easy, it wouldn't feel right. Vetta was very excited because she was about to make a name for herself by taking down a legend from the past. Since they're so intense over there, we should continue as well, Andrew said. At first, I intended to persuade her and then let her go, but since she had seen something she shouldn't have, she had to die. Even though she was talking to Run-Kandel, he ambushed towards Jin. Luckily, you were always on guard, so you weren't hit by that attack. Then Jin used light magic to blind the old man. Seeing this, Vetta took the opportunity to hit Jin with her tail. He was knocked back, gasping for breath as the monster charged at him, seemingly wanting to swallow him whole. Seeing this, Jin had no choice but to use his trump card. He shattered the pendant that Luna had given him earlier to summon her. And then suddenly, a beam of light shone up into the night sky. Right after that, Luna grabbed a huge sword. The little one didn't even bother to greet her sister when leaving. It must have been quite desperate to seek her help. Andrew broke out in a cold sweat when he saw Luna. He didn't expect the white whale to make it here. When Luna saw the vice head of the Zipples family and his powerful wind dragon guardian, she thought it was indeed worthy of calling her here. She also praised her little brother a bit. Somehow, you've managed to hold on quite well against an opponent of this caliber. Ha! Jin pointed out that she was just a little sure of losing her life, also not forgetting to thank her big sister for coming. Just hearing those words made me realize that Andrew was in deep trouble. Of all people to mess with, hitting the little brother of the white whale could only lead to death. Luna turned towards Andrew and asked if he had business with her brother. I really need an explanation for this. Earlier, Jin was worried that against an opponent like the vice head of the Zipples family and that powerful wind dragon, even if Sister Luna came here, victory was uncertain. But now, looking at the situation, it seemed he had guessed wrong. The outcome of this battle was clear. At this moment, Murakan and Run-Kandel also reached Jin's side. He said, "It's best for all three of us to step back. Since Vetta has controlled the wind, I cannot help Luna. But anyway, thank you, Jin, because if it weren't for your big sister, the three of us would probably be done for here." As for Andrew, although he was astonished, he asserted that the Run-Kandel clan had broken their oath to Zipples. Your youngest brother, Jin Runcandel, has used magic. The Zipples clan will not easily overlook this. Luna, upon hearing this, scoffed, saying that this news would never reach the Zipples clan. The old man, Andrew, became furious at the insolence of the girl. He commanded the monster to attack Luna, but she was now on a different level. With a flash of light, the monster was sliced into 1,000 pieces. She mocked, saying that all the members of the Zipples clan she had encountered were adept at nonsensical talk, and it seemed the deputy clan leader was no exception. As soon as she finished speaking, she continued her attack towards Wind Dragon Bull. She asked, "Do you still want to maintain that form? That will only give me more places to cut." Then Vetta transformed into a human shape, revealing that he was a man. Under Andrew's orders, Vetta knew what he needed to do. He summoned the power of wind around him, forming a spear combined with the evil energy from Andrew's origin stone, an evil force. It was not magic, it was closer to a power and resembled the kind of strength emitted by the demon race. Luna guessed that the dragon tribe needed a little more time to use that item effectively. It was hard to believe that the deputy head of the Zipples tribe and the powerful wind dragon would wager their lives on such a thing. Do you really think that thing can save your lives? As Luna spoke, Vetta thrust her spear with all her might towards her. Luna swung her sword to block the attack. Following that, the two clashed repeatedly, battling for dominance. But that was only until Luna had not yet used her full strength. Right after that, she easily inflicted a serious injury on Vetta. Seeing that the wind dragon had nothing interesting left to show her, Luna decided to end it quickly. She pointed her sword towards the sky, using the third technique of Run-Kandel, Meteor Shower. Jin recalled what Uncle Zed had taught: the swordsmanship of our family is like a punisher. It has devastating power, fights, punishes, and rules. The thoughts of the family permeate the sword as a unified entity. Because of that, the swords of the Run-Kandel family did not have a fixed shape. Jin finally saw the family's philosophy in the sword strokes of his sister Luna. The third sword technique, Meteor Shower. It was so dazzling, so beautiful, and powerful to the point of despair. Andrew stood frozen under Luna's attack. The wind dragon Vetta rushed in to block the blow for him and urged him to regain his composure. But Andrew still couldn't believe his eyes. It was utterly ridiculous for someone who had not entered into a pact with the gods or the dragon tribe to possess such power. How could she have such strength? How could it possibly be the strength of a human? Vetta lifted his spirits. As long as you are alive, we can still win. Even if I die, can't you still bring me back to life with the magic stone? Those words reignited Andrew's fighting spirit. He believed that as long as he could still use the magic stone, he would not die. As long as he had it, he would remain the embodiment of the god. After the meteor shower attack, Luna revealed a not-so-pleasant expression. Although the wind dragon retained only one wing, Luna thought she needed to train much harder to reach her father's level. That said, it was enough to teach the Zippel family a lesson. Moreover, the boy Jin had also gained motivation. In the end, if you cannot reach our father's level, then it will surely be up to me, Luna thought. Lost in thought, a creature approached her. It was Andrew, merged with a magical stone. Nuraken guessed that the stones were likely created by the Zippel family using contract signers, though they appeared to be of low quality that did not diminish their danger. As he spoke, Nuraken transformed back into his dragon form. He said he would take Jin and Quantel out of this place. Jin, you must follow me. This place is too dangerous. Jin, of course, disagreed. Sister Luna is still here. We should all fight together. Despite this, Nuraken continued to advise him to leave, assuring him that with her power, his sister could handle things. With your sister's strength, you can rest assured you won't be able to help here. But Jin remained determined to stay. Ever since he made a contract with Solderit, he had been revived and met Nuraken. He felt that from the beginning, his starting point and luck had surpassed that of his siblings. However, he still had no idea where he stood now. Accepting to flee without resistance made him no different from a useless member of the family. Therefore, this time, Jin was resolute in not allowing himself to feel that way again. He must become stronger. Nuraken watched this scene and saw that little Jin was indeed a brave person. The fact that he showed such a high fighting spirit upon witnessing this made him extremely proud. If he maintains this spirit, it won't be long before the boy becomes the best in the entire continent. Until then, Nuraken would always watch over and protect him. On this side, Luna was still asking, do you really think that transforming a little bit can kill me? What a delusion of failure. Hearing this, he immediately demonstrated it to her. He extended his hand towards her and shot out a powerful wave of energy. It was extremely difficult for Luna to withstand that attack. Andrew smirked and said, right now, there are 12 gods whose power I am siphoning, so Luna Run-Kandel wouldn't be left to counter me. But for a swordsman, having just one sword is more than enough. Luna said, if you fight you with that disgusting magic of yours, then at the very least, I'll show you half the power I will display from now on, along with contempt and pity. Saying that, Luna swung her sword and charged at him. Andrew was startled. Previously, he had faced many swordsmen, but this was the first time he saw bloodlight. Even so, this was a desperate situation. He was confident that his transformation had reached the level of a god, so he retaliated. But right after that, with her sword skill and blood moon ability, Luna cleaved the self-proclaimed god Andrew in two. However, there was one unexpected thing. The essence stone exploded. Luna was very close at that moment, so it was nearly impossible for her to evade it. She was preparing herself to withstand its attack when suddenly a voice called from the sky. It was Jin and Barakan coming to help. It seemed that today her youngest sibling was saving her again. The next day, in the Bemet Empire, Raz was reporting to the king about the southern island that had disappeared the night before. Nearby, a tornado that consumed everything had also been discovered. In addition, a large amount of mana had been detected around that area. Part of the cause is human, but most of the power belongs to the silver dragon and the wind dragon. Upon hearing this, the king inquired, isn't the wind dragon the guardian dragon of the Zippel family? This must be related to them. Raz added, it seems that the wind dragon has died and has left behind some pieces of Vetta. As for the source of energy, it is mostly due to contract signers, and there is also another concerning energy source. Regarding Andrew, Raz reported that he was still searching but had no results. The other person, hearing this, slammed the table in anger. There have been too many omissions in the reports lately. Have you identified the previous guest of Quick and Tell? Hearing this, Raz could only bow his head and admit his fault. Then I guess it can't be helped. In this kingdom, if you can't do it, who else can? Moreover, don't reveal anything to the news. If India is not found by tonight, report her missing. Send more people towards the Zippel territory, and do not let any issues arise. The person who was just talking to Raz is the Emperor of Bemet, Amervaman. Elsewhere, Bishkal Ibriano and Bluebear Gaston have also just learned about Andrew using the Demon Stone. Blue Bear is cursing the Zippel clan for daring to destroy the demon stone he created. He cannot forgive them because it is still not completed. Bishril is also upset with their actions because, owing to the Zippel clan, he has not been able to kill this pig. Bishril tells Blue Bear that for now, Kinzenlo will temporarily postpone cooperation with the Zippel clan, so they will no longer associate with them. In the hidden chamber of the Zippel clan, Selayak has also recognized his younger brother. His guardian dragon says perhaps he is left with Vetta. Moreover, he took the demon stone and was still killed. Selayak suspects that the power of that silver dragon and those involved at the time was beyond imagination. The guardian dragon guesses, could it be the shadow dragon Misha? She is the one who once killed an enormous region in Kinzenlo. With her power, this makes sense. Misha is the sister of Murakhan. Above all, Run-Kandel is Murakhan's ex-girlfriend, so she is not entirely an outsider to her. Now Selayak understands, now you know what we need to do next. Do you want me to find that black dragon? The guardian dragon Kadun says that is impossible. If the black dragons want to hide, not even the heavens can find them. Selayak remained remarkably calm. Of course, he felt sadness over his younger brother's death, but this had all been anticipated. The headache now was having to call someone to create another demon stone. Without it, capturing the Run-Kandel family before Chiron died would be impossible. The same went for the Dark Sea King. It was an inevitable task to seize power in the world, or at least to become a supreme deity. Transitioning to Ticken, Jin's group finally arrived after several days. Gilly was astonished to see them, as in addition to Jin and the others, Lady Luna was also with them. A few hours later, Murakhan had to take special care of her because Jai kept thinking that young Master Jin was about to be expelled from the family. Seeing this, Luna questioned, has my wet nurse misunderstood something? She seems very worried about me. At the same time, Lord Kashmir entered, having rushed over upon hearing the news of their return. Jin introduced the person sitting on the sofa as Luna Run-Kandel, his sister. Just hearing the name Luna left Lord Kashmir utterly shocked. It was indeed an honor to meet the white whale here. Jin continued, all right, let me introduce the person sitting on the sofa, Guardian Dragon Silver, Guardian Dragon of Miss Enid of Run-Kandel. In Kashmir's mind, numbers quickly sprang to mind, and he bent over at a 90-degree angle to greet her. He wasn't foolish enough to provoke another dragon. Run-Kandel shot a bullet-like gaze at Kashmir and asked, where is Enya? Kashmir quickly replied, she is with her daughter and Laytree. Laytree just returned 3 hours ago, but he noticed something very strange. Laytree cannot remember what happened during his disappearance. He only remembers that Vetta insisted on not teaching him dragon language. He doesn't remember anything else. Currently, Laytree was completely intact, so they couldn't say that the Zippel family had kidnapped him. Kashmir believed that he was not abducted. That's not true. Run-Kandel opposed, I heard them admit it myself. Murakhan then spoke up, perhaps the Zippel family is erasing any traces related to the demon stones and Laytree's memories. I suspect those demon stones must have some effect, which is why they had to replicate the original stone. Murakhan continued, they might want to become deities. With the power of the stone, they could gather the strength of the gods. At that time, they could eliminate anyone who opposes them and become the sole supreme deity. Anyway, that's a matter for the future. Kashmir said, for now, you all should rest here. I will gather more information through Pewfester. I will also take Miss Run-Kandel to see Miss Enya. At the same time, Gilly also woke up and asked, young master, why did I faint? Just waking up, her eyes still wide open. The first thing she saw was the image of Miss Luna. Gilly then understood the reason for her previous fainting. That night, everyone held a party to celebrate the recent victory. Luna said, Jin, you've done a lot in the past 2 months. From breaking up the underground auction house in Arkan, killing Vice Master Zippel and his wind dragon. Furthermore, you were able to use magic even though you haven't been taught at all. You really are impressive. Sitting next to her, Gilly forced a smile. She felt she would definitely be in trouble if Miss Luna discovered these matters. Who would have guessed that the young lady would side with the young master? Now, there was only the need to hide it from the head of the family. As soon as she finished speaking, Luna said, my father already knows about this. Gilly was taken aback. Luna continued, everything has been reported to my father. Jin then said, Gilly, don't worry too much because tomorrow Luna and I will go to meet my father. Upon hearing this, the other two were even more surprised. How could a reserve flag bearer return to the family at this time? Jin stated, I'm going back to warn him about the actions of the Zippel family. They are plotting to attack Run-Kandel. Luna rebutted, isn't it better for you to talk to Dad about these matters? If you return without permission, there will be serious consequences. Are you planning to give up on the flag bearer exam? Jin replied, since Dad already knows everything is my fault, it's best that I tell him myself. Luna reminded her one last time, if you keep being stubborn like this, he will really kill you. Don't think that because you're the favorite, you can do whatever you want. Jin frankly said, isn't Sister Luna here? I trust you will stop him. Seeing her brother so determined, Luna decided not to stop him anymore. She would return with Jin the next day. Hilly asked, "Why is Miss Luna doing this for the young master?" Luna only smiled and said, "Because in this house, the siblings are always ready to kill each other, so Jin just needs someone who can protect him, and I believe that he has his own way." The next day, as soon as they arrived home, the two were warmly welcomed by the family. Runtia led the family's forces to block Luna and Jin. She could not believe that the eldest sister Luna did not intervene, but instead brought Jin back at this time. Beside her, Vigo pointed at Jin and said, "Youngest, are you crazy? How can a reserve flag bearer dare to go to the martial arts garden?" Mew and Anne also added a few words, perhaps because Sister Luna was too biased towards him. Everything happening here was just as Luna thought. The younger siblings were all prepared for this, and even their father was aware of the situation. Inside, Mary and Diffus looked out and still didn't understand what the other two were doing. Could it be that the little one wants to experience what it's like after death? But if the little one dies, who will compete with his sister, which is me? Outside, Luna and Runtia were still arguing with each other. It was known that Jin wanted to find their father, so Runtia allowed him to enter the study to meet him. As for Sister Luna, she had to stay outside. The first flag bearer had to leave his weapon behind and wait. What if I don't want to? Upon hearing that, the other siblings assumed fighting stances. Runtia said this was the order of the family head. Any resistance would result in immediate death. "Don't worry about me," Jin said. "I'm just going to talk to Dad as his son. It's nothing major." Hearing this, the siblings fell silent. This guy has lost his mind. As Jin walked toward the study, he thought maybe his siblings had never understood their father. Even though the flag bearer returning to the family was against the rules, Dad wasn't the kind of person who cared about such regulations. He believed if he had the chance to talk like before, there would definitely be no problems. So Jin knocked on the door. Just as he expected, nothing happened, except the door exploded. Jin had no idea that all of his predictions had gone completely wrong. "Your father called out, 'Perhaps I have overestimated you. I gave you 5 years, but why are you here now?'" Jin also understood the concept of a unified swordsman, whose sword energy could easily defeat opponents from a distance, meaning he still had a soft spot for him. Jin then replied, "I just wanted to visit you." Deep down, he knew he couldn't say sorry. He could be confident, but not arrogant. Chiron fell silent upon hearing this, as he had never heard any child speak to him in such a manner before. He then said, "Does knowing out help you gain this ridiculous love of family?" Jin responded, "No, I have always cherished you." Immediately, a killing intent radiated from Chiron, and Jin was unsure of what he had said wrong. This time, he might truly be in danger. At that moment, Chiron covered his mouth with a book, thinking to himself, "I almost laughed out loud." It turned out that his near laughter made his son nearly spill his guts. Then Chiron told Jin, "Let's get to the point. What could you bring me?" Jin replied, "Yes, it's Deputy Clan Leader Zipples, who was mocked by Father at the banquet that deceased. There are also a few other things. If Father is okay with it, do you want me to report on what happened?" Hearing this, Chiron closed the book he was reading. He went down and said, "Just sit down. I will listen to what you have to say." After that, Jin narrated in detail everything that had happened to him. Jin guessed that Andrew Zipples could not truly be Selak's right hand. Although he was the deputy clan leader, his strength was vastly inferior to that of Luna. Chiron nodded at Jin's reasoning. "That's right. That scoundrel is just a deputy clan leader. The one who holds the second greatest power after Selak is someone else." After Chiron's conclusion, Jin continued speaking about another important matter, which was the scoundrels who had used an object called the Demon Stone. Jin said, "As I see it, it's a replica of the origin stone created by the gods." Upon hearing this, Chiron stroked his chin and said, "Did Muraken tell you about this?" Jin was slightly surprised, but nodded in agreement. He asked, "Did Father already know that Muraken had awakened?" Chiron replied, "I also know that Jin can use mana." So Jin had to reveal all his secrets. In the end, his father laughed heartily. The matter of going to Muraken was merely speculation. How can a grain of rice compete with chicken? Who would have thought that a great black dragon would fall from being a dragon to a mere cat? Chiron believed that further investigation into the stone was necessary. If it was a primordial replica, it would indeed be very dangerous. He wondered whether the Dark Sea King was aware of this matter. After all, these beings were fragments of the primordial origin, so if they knew, they would surely take some action. Thinking this, he told Jin that he would not pursue the matter and allowed him to make a request. Jin wished that his father would not allow anyone from the Run-Kandel family to set foot in the free city of Ticken. Chiron accepted his request, but with one condition: capture one person. The hidden master of Ticken, the swordmaster Kashmir. Do this to prove yourself. He set a deadline of 1 year for Jin to compel that wretched person to submit to Run-Kandel. Seconds later, the swordmaster Kashmir stood right in front of Chiron. So this time, a grain of rice was able to compete with chicken, my friends. Kashmir felt immense pressure standing before Chiron. It was the first time he had encountered the strongest swordsman in the entire continent, Chiron Run-Kandel. Nevertheless, he reassured himself that he was a guest of young Master Jin, so there was no need to be afraid. As soon as he finished thinking, he bowed his head to greet to ease his fear. Chiron turned to his son and asked, "What is the relationship between the two of you?" Jin replied loudly, "Regarding our relationship with the Swordmaster Kashmir, it feels as if fate has arranged it." Mr. Kashmir was startled to hear this. If they described themselves as destined, wouldn't that mean Ticken would be a shared asset of Run-Kandel? Or was he implying that destiny has arranged it, which could mean Run-Kandel and Ticken could be the same? At that moment, Chiron understood how cunning his youngest son was. After deceiving his father, he still stood there confidently. Having said that, he accepted Jin's previous request. From now on, no member of the Run-Kandel family could set foot in Ticken without Jin's permission. After finishing his words, Chiron allowed Jin to step out so he could talk to Kashmir. Now, Kashmir had to face that fierce demon alone. Once Jin stepped outside, he saw the Tona brothers running over to greet him. They seemed to have been watching the tense situation unfold. Jin was fine now, but he quickly asked the two older brothers to keep an eye on the junior cadets on his side. Assuming both brothers agreed, he immediately left before they could say anything. The Tona brothers couldn't understand how their younger brother could be so carefree when meeting their father. Truly a demon. Outside, people seemed surprised to see Jin come out unscathed. Jin told Sister Luna to go inside quickly because father needed to talk to her. Just then, Kashmir also came outside after a light conversation with Sir Chiron, and just looking at his face, one could tell he was quite impressive. Anne saw these people running around in a panic and scolded them, but it seemed no one responded. "Ranchia, put your sword away because it looks like the chief has handled everything. Now they have no right to intervene." Jin waved goodbye to Sister Luna one last time, and this time he returned to Ticken to focus on his training. A month later, at the underground training grounds of Kashmir's mansion, Jin Runcandel faced Alicia Badger for their 30th duel, marking Jin's 30th defeat and likely heading toward his 31st loss. In early August 1795, the Zipples clan officially announced the deaths of Andrew and Vetta, but since they did not disclose the cause, many rumors began to circulate. Some said they were killed in an internal conflict, while others claimed they died while fighting the council. A few rumors even suggested they were assassinated for offending King Bement. But the most credible rumor was that they died in battle against the Run-Kandels. People speculated that a conflict between the Zipples and Run-Kandel clans would soon erupt. They began discussing whether swords or magic would prevail. The answer would be revealed when the intervening power turned its back on one of the two sides. A guard reported to Chiron about a few small kingdoms, asking for assistance. Chiron requested to send help and gifts to them. This was necessary now. It seemed that this was all the result of the mischief caused by the youngest one. Now he had taken control of this entire family. Saying that, Chiron instructed Khan, "I will go to the Black Sea. If Kashmir sends a letter, bring it to me immediately." At the training grounds of the Kashmir estate, Jin Runcandel was diligently practicing as usual. Months had passed since he last met his siblings. Although he had swung his sword thousands of times, Jin still felt his swordsmanship remained the same. He recalled the battle on that island at night. If it weren't for Sister Luna, he would have died there. Although he was already one of the finest on the continent at his current age, it was still not enough for the battles ahead. His father had given him 5 years. He had become stronger than his siblings within that time. At that moment, Kashmir entered from afar and advised him to stop this training. He suggested, "If you keep this up every day, even with the divine strength of the Run-Kandel family, you won't be able to hold on." Inya felt sorry for Jin, torturing himself like this. Kashmir approached as well. He said, "I understand how Jin feels right now. However, haste is the most toxic thing. It will only lead you to go against the path you have chosen. I'm so embarrassed. Even though I know that avoiding it isn't easy at all." Kashmir said, "There's nothing to be ashamed of. Who can train as much as you do in a day? That's really impressive. But you should change your training to something that makes you feel calmer." Jin wondered, "Is there such a way?" Kashmir replied, "Yes, you should try sparring with someone stronger than you." Jin asked, "Are you suggesting that I spar with you?" Upon hearing this, Kashmir drew his sword to demonstrate his skills. Although his recent performance in front of Jin had been somewhat lacking, the title of a master swordsman is no joke. Then Kashmir sheathed his sword and said, "Until Jin gets stable, the two of you will spar with each other. For now, you should train with the strongest guard of Ticken, which is Alicia. Just in time, she brought her daughter here." Kashmir set a 6-month deadline for Jin to defeat his wife. He could use anything he had to fight, whether it be magic or throwing weapons. Jin looked at Alicia and assessed her. At first glance, aside from her physical strength, she didn't seem very strong. While thinking this, Julia on the other side started crying loudly because Jin was very weak. Why is Mom fighting him? I will stand by Jin because Mom told me to protect the weak. Alicia comforted Jin. Don't be sad, because my daughter doesn't know how to lie. Hearing this, Jin could only smile, so that's a comfort. After discussing, the two agreed that the match would be held after dinner, and they would compete every day for the next 6 months. Jin was still afraid of bothering Alicia, but it would be over quickly. 2 days later, Jin's first training day with Alicia began. Before the match, Alicia introduced herself as a former member of the Bemet Special Forces. Therefore, there would be no mercy in the fights with Jin. She warned him, even if you lose badly, don't get discouraged. After saying that, Alicia took his stance and prepared to strike. Jin was confident that he could at least withstand a few blows before failing. Then Alicia's one punch came forward. Amidst the dust, Jin managed to block the first blow after activating all of his equipment. Alicia was slightly surprised that he could stop it. At that moment, Jin used light magic to temporarily blind her. Immediately afterward, he took a stance and rushed to attack her. Now, Jin knew what he was preparing for next. Surely he would be getting a visit from the doctor. A few days later, at the Kashmir mansion, Jin and Alicia were discussing the previous match. Alicia expressed surprise, thinking he wouldn't be able to attack a second time on the first day. She noted that it seemed Jin had prepared very thoroughly for that battle. She also asked, "What was that light you used in the battle, Jin?" Jin explained that it was a type of ancient magic, and I admit that I probably won't be able to win with such tricks. Alicia objected, saying that this was the reason Jin always defeated stronger opponents. He always meticulously prepared everything before entering battle. As for Jin, he also realized that this was the first time he had completely failed in a match. Could he possibly defeat her in the next 6 months? Outside, Kashmir was still carefully recording every conversation between the two. It seemed that the previous discussion with Lord Chiron was about this matter. He would report Jin's situation to him. A month later, on May 22, 1795, in an unprotected area in the eastern continent, also known as the Black Sea, Chiron Run-Kandel was training and slaying monsters here. At that moment, Khan came to report news about young Master Jin. He handed Kashmir's letter to the master of the house. This letter had been received 10 days prior. Chiron then opened it to read, and inside were the disgusting words of Kashmir. "Dear esteemed Lord Chiron Run-Kandel, I, a humble knight, respectfully send this letter to you." The content of the conversation was not disclosed by the author. Chiron was furious as he read this. I asked him to report on his youngest son, but it seemed he was a very sensitive person. Khan immediately suggested that next time he would ask him to summarize. Chiron wondered what his youngest son was doing on a secluded island. He had heard recently that Jin had been knocked out by that Kashmir's wife. The first duel ended in 3 rounds. The second lasted 5 rounds, the 7th 10 rounds, the 12th 25 rounds. The 13th he endured 10 rounds. And this letter mentioned that in the 14th match, he seemed to have lost a lot. Chiron spoke. Khan thought that perhaps Lord Chiron found it amusing that the young master was losing. Just then, he heard from Lord Chiron that the one facing the young master was from the special division of Bemet. Khan quickly congratulated Lord Chiron, as not everyone could compete with those from the special department. Chiron continued, the letter stated that in the 14th match, Jin endured 120 attacks. He had broken his own limits. If he were the eldest, I would have handed the Run-Kandel family over to him without regret. But it is quite a pity. When Khan heard these words, he was surprised, as it was the first time he had heard the owner mention an heir. There had been many times he had observed, but he had never referred to a specific person. The only reason Joshua was in that position was that Luna had stepped back. This was not something proposed by the clan leader. Nevertheless, Khan still advised Lord Chiron to hold off on discussing the inheritance matter, as although young Master Jin was suitable at present, the future was uncertain. He was not cold-hearted. Although kind-natured, he was also quite soft-hearted. Chiron agreed with this. At this point, Jin was completely different from Joshua. When necessary, a person must be able to cast aside their family. That is the instinct of a Run-Kandel family member. With that, Chiron ordered Khan to return, but he did not forget to ask why the letter had arrived here a full 10 days late. Khan, why did the letter arrive so late? Khan apologized and replied, because the road here was plagued with 2 meat monsters causing delays. Upon hearing this, Chiron casually swung a blade of air tearing through the mountain. So make sure to arrive earlier next time. At Jin's place, it was the 93rd day he had begun training with Alicia. She remarked, Jin is a truly wonderful person. I never thought that in such a short time you could push me back this much. After talking with Alicia, Jin continued to take out the sword to practice as usual. Alicia stood to the side, watching and sensing him progress with each swing of his sword, but that progress was truly unusual. She guessed it might be because his aura and mana were continuously rising, and the thing that facilitated that was probably the power of darkness. After all, no matter how outstanding his talent was, it was only his persistent will that would give those things meaning. At this rate, she would have to forget the 6-month deadline. Alicia thought Jin might defeat her as soon as tomorrow. The next day, Jin and Alicia continued to train as usual. Alicia noticed a vast opening in Jin's fence, assuming it would be a victory like any other day, but this time was different. Jin had tricked her and slipped behind her. Then with a swing of his sword, one of Alicia's shoulders was severely injured. He quickly stopped the match and called Enya over. While Enya was tending to Alicia's injuries, Jin thought to himself, something felt off about that last match. That strike of mine was something Alicia could have easily dodged. Indeed, it was true. Alicia also felt that when Jin launched his attack, she had thought he was moving as usual and had been complacent, not dodging. Although this win was merely an accident, she believed that not long after Jin reached 6 stars, she would truly be defeated at its hands. On December 1, 1795, Jin and Muraken were going out to buy ice cream to enjoy on a winter day. At this moment, the two encountered Kashmir and his daughter. Kashmir said, "I want to talk to you a bit about work. I have investigated Bishkal Ibriano. His family is currently declining due to a lack of talent, and the only one with the potential to become the next head of the family is Bishkal. Moreover, this Bishkal Ibriano might also be related to the Kinzenlo organization. According to the gathered information, he visits the Kazano territory once a week. And when he goes there, he always visits the workshop of Buber Gaston." Kashmir continued, "I also guessed that Buber's rank is slightly higher than Bishkal's." Jin thought for a moment and said, "So the Kinzenlo organization is not simple. It's not surprising that someone at rank 8 like Bishkal is willing to join since they have done such things in their past life." Jin asked further, "Is there any other information about Spider-Hand's Alan?" Kashmir replied, "Although the members of Hewfester have thoroughly searched as if they were cleaning up rubbish, they still found no information about him before he arrived in Tessing. Jin suspects that someone may have deliberately erased his tracks." When he was done with work, Jin thanked Kashmir for helping him find the information. Just as it was about to be time for the match, Jin said, "How about we go and watch it together, Kashmir?" This time, Jin was sure he would show him something that even he had just discovered recently. At the arena, Alicia was very surprised to see her husband arrive. She said, "How come you are here today?" "Because today I didn't want you to see me lose." Upon hearing his wife's words, Kashmir was a bit shocked. After all, it had only been 3 months since they started. Could it be that he had already surpassed Alicia? Now, let's get started. As it began, for the first time summoning something, to everyone's astonishment, a green phoenix appeared behind him. In this world, mages from 6-star rank are granted the power to form contracts with anyone. However, no mage can know which type of phoenix they will form a contract with. This is because mages can only open portals to the fiery world, and the choice is entirely up to the phoenixes themselves. They will choose their deserving masters. For this reason, all mages hope to be chosen by a special kind of phoenix. Among all the most rare types of special phoenixes, there is one that carries the power of blue flame, and that is Tess. All mages who successfully summon Tess are masters in their era. And now back to the battle with Alicia. It had become an uneven fight as Jin's side had 2 versus 1. Jin ordered Tess to attack Alicia. "Alicia, be careful," Jin shouted. She sensed that the fire magic was not ordinary flames. The blue fire carried a strange power. When it touched her body, she felt her body becoming heavier. It seemed to be a force that pressed her body down. Therefore, Alicia decided she needed to quickly end the battle before it was too late. On Jin's side, he could still summon Tess for another 3 minutes. He also intended to finish the fight quickly within that time frame. Next, Jin used a sword strike combined with wind magic. This caused Alicia to step back and adopt a defensive stance. Jin realized that in every attack Alicia made, she aimed to overpower her opponent no matter the situation. She was surely eager to regain that dominance now, and he would take advantage of it to attack. With that thought, Jin struck towards Alicia with his sword. He continuously combined dark power with sword techniques for a series of strikes. Additionally, he did not forget to mix in magic attacks. Then, under Jin's attacking circumstances, Alicia decided to counterattack instead of remaining in a defensive position. "Enough, I will give up," Alicia shouted, grabbing Jin's sword. Finally, it had come. "All right, this time I've caught you," Alicia said determinedly. But as she prepared to strike, Alicia found that Jin was no longer in front of her. At that moment, he was right behind her. Thus, a wind magic strike defeated Alicia, a former special agent of Bemin. A few minutes later in Kashmir's mansion, Nurakin was gaping in astonishment as he listened to the report. It wasn't about defeating Alicia, but rather about how Jin had summoned the Phoenix Tess. Even Quick-Intel couldn't believe his ears and knelt down. In the training yard, Jin and Alicia were still talking to each other. Jin expressed his gratitude to her for the training days that had passed. At that moment, Murakin and Quick-Intel, upon hearing the news, rushed over. Murakin urgently shouted for Jin to call Tess out for him to see. So, Tess was summoned by Jin. Above, Quick-Intel immediately knelt down to worship the Lord of Fire. Murakin, feeling a bit embarrassed, said, "It's been a long time, hasn't it?" "Long time? What long time?" Tess flew over and continuously tapped Murakin on the forehead. Seeing this scene, for some reason, Kashmir felt an unusual refreshment within. Jin, witnessing this, didn't know what else to do and withdrew Tess to save Murakin. Jin curiously asked, "Why does Lord Murakin have to endure humiliation from that bird?" Murakin, with a headache, explained to Jin, "That's not the true form of Tess. You can only witness its real being in Fire World. Fire World is just a name used by the gods and dragons to refer to their dwelling place, as even the mightiest gods do not know what the true name of that place is." Jin wondered, so if the gods don't know that place, then it's beyond their control, right? Indeed, that's right. Murakin said that was the reason even the fire god Shinu could not use fire there. Then Murakin pointed to the sky, preparing to say something important. In the past, several gods and dragon clans had taken it upon themselves to leave the fire world. And then one day, it started causing trouble and made Tess angry. He burned 5 gods and 7 dragon clans on the spot. Hearing this, Jin rubbed his chin and asked Murakin, "If Tess is that strong, is there any way to unleash all that power?" "Of course, that is impossible." Murakin replied, "No matter how strong the human is, they cannot fully unleash that power, because nothing can unleash the full power of an entity from another dimension. It is generally viewed as a type of balance. It is also why the gods in this world cannot accomplish anything significant. In short, Murakin thinks someone like Jin should have been incinerated in the fire world. How could he summon Tess like this?" He further added that Tess had asked him to convey that he really likes you. Jin found Tess to be much greater than he had thought. With Shinu being the fire god and governing the fire of the whole world, fire attacks on the guardian dragon or his contractee would be ineffective. But now, he had Tess. Once the Run-Kandel clan and Zipples clashed, that blue flame would be immense support. On May 2, 1976, in the Black Sea, Chiron Run-Kandel was reading a report letter about Jin. Although he knew his youngest child had just been chosen by Tess, he felt no interest in the Phoenix. Moreover, in the report, the section about Jin's swordsmanship was barely written. He grumbled. Even though he had previously allowed Jin to use magic and concealed weapons, he was still a Run-Kandel. Then Chiron called for Khan. "Does Ron Heron have a grandson?" Chiron asked. Khan replied, "A few days ago, I also received information about Ron's grandson entering the tournament of the modern world. Dan Heron participated in the tournament under a pseudonym. The tournament of the modern world is a competition between pirates. 10 years ago, Mary Run-Kandel was the winner of the overall competition. Chiron ordered Khan to send Jin to participate in that tournament. I believe that under the watchful eyes of many, Jin will be forced to use his sword instead of magic. And fighting against a genius will make him realize that the Run-Kandel family must prove themselves with the sword." At that time, Ticken Kashmir also received a letter and an application to join the tournament sent by Khan. He then told Jin about Ron Heron's grandson participating in the tournament. Ron Heron was once considered Chiron's equal before becoming the head of the family, and Dan Heron was his favorite grandson, so he must be very strong. Jin listened to this and thought for a while before deciding not to participate, which made Kashmir pale with fear. So he had to make an effort to persuade him, otherwise it would end badly for him with Sir Chiron. Seeing this, Jin also stopped teasing and agreed to participate in the competition. Jin now knew that Kashmir, who was standing in front of him, was busy and not to be underestimated. At this moment, Kashmir announced, "Jin, you need to set off tomorrow because the deadline is almost up." After saying that, he immediately ran away, fearing that if he lingered, Jin might change his mind. A few days later, Jin arrived at the Belado Empire, an island located in the southern part of the continent. This was the first time Jin had been to a place like this since Mammoth. This place was even more sickly than Mammoth. It was surprising that a tournament could even be held here. The competition, although called a contest, allowed participants to kill their opponents. Moreover, there were no restrictions on weapons. Even before the match began, participants could assassinate or poison their opponents. It was unexpected that the grandson of the great Heron family would participate in a competition in such a place. The head of that family must be out of their mind. Well, whatever the reason, it didn't matter. It was thanks to that he had the opportunity to fight him. Thinking this, Jin passed by Danth and Veridin. Unexpectedly, our clown has also come to this place, my friends. After that, Jin went to the registration area for the competition. In front of him was a grumpy old man who seemed to be the manager of this contest. He asked, "Who are you? Are you here to participate in the competition?" Jin replied, "That's right. I came here to register." The old man waved his hand to signal Jin to leave and said, "Registration time is over. You better go outside and die in some corner. That would be for the best." Jin was quite sure that the registration period was still valid until sunset. Hearing this, the old man got very irritated. He bluntly said, "I'm not in the mood right now, so I won't register you. Do you not understand, or are you just pretending not to understand?" Jin took out 2 gold coins and approached him. Everyone thought Jin was about to bribe the old man, but they were completely wrong. Jin punched the old man, knocking out a couple of his teeth and sending him spinning. Jin looked at him and asked, "Is this enough? Now write my name down." Hearing this, the old man chuckled, "This kid, you have some guts, don't you? I like that. Now I will register you here." Then he handed Jin the registration form and instructed, "You will be on board 13. Quickly take it and go to your accommodation, and the people inside will gently guide you through the rest. With all the romance and love, I, the master of the Pirate Island Cosmos, am pleased to welcome you to join this competition." After a while, Jin was walking with a guide to room 13. The other person saw that Jin was still just a kid and complained, "This year there are so many kids participating like ants." He said there was another kid who had beaten the captain just like you. "It's a pity you two aren't in the same group. I really wanted to see you two tear each other apart." Saying that, he wished Jin good luck. "If you perform well, you too might be in the finals, but it seems that will take quite a bit of luck on your part." After walking a little longer, they arrived at the gathering place for Route 13. He told Jin he would stay here until this group started. "I hope you can keep your life until then." As for the accommodation situation, he told Jin to find his own way inside. Jin noticed that this competition had never had enough rooms for all the candidates from the start. Each room had 2 to 3 people. They probably wanted the contestants to fight each other before the matches began. This felt more like a survival game than a strength competition. While thinking, Jin walked inside and someone said to him, "Get out of here. Can't you see there are already 3 people in here? I'm going to count to 3, and before I finish counting, it's best you be out of my sight." Saying that, Jin immediately counted 1. The other person, hearing this, started to sweat profusely. 2, 3. And thus, he was kicked out of the room before the eyes of the others. The remaining 2 people in the room were also quickly sent off to the other side by Jin. He then picked up the sword and asked, "Now is there anyone else who wants to stay? What more is there to hesitate about?" The group rushed in to attack collectively. Moments later, the pirates who had just charged at Jin began to regret their actions. One by one, they were easily taken down by Jin, his sword gliding through the air as smoothly as slicing sugarcane. In the end, Jin had dealt with all the opponents here. Jin thought, even though this place is lawless, it doesn't compare to Mammoth at all. A few hours later, the guide returned to room 13. He looked at Jin and said, "Things will get a bit troublesome. Are you planning to kill everyone before the match starts?" Jin smiled and replied, "This is just a minor event before the main course today." The guide was quite pleased to hear that. He said, "I didn't expect you to be more than just arrogant. Just as the captain said before, you truly are a person of ambition." Saying that, he urged Jin to follow him quickly. "Tables 1 and 2 will start soon, so let's go outside and watch." Outside in the arena, the atmosphere was incredibly enthusiastic. The guide warned Jin not to use his sword in the spectator area. "That's prohibited, so be obedient." Jin calmly looked around and remarked, "I can't believe so many people have come to watch. Even though no one probably recognizes me, it seems I still need to disguise myself a bit." At the same time, there were whispers discussing a person who had defeated more than half of the contestants in Group 13. Jin heard this and immediately knew who it was, hurriedly moving to another place. But over here, it was also an equally thrilling story. They were discussing one of the contestants who belonged to the Run-Kandel family. A reserve flag bearer from the Run-Kandel house, one person spoke up. This was sent by some pirates under Cosmos' command. The audience couldn't help but get excited, wondering if the Run-Kandel person was Daytona, Haytona, or Jin himself, unaware that the person was right in front of them. Jin nearby wondered, how did they even know the names of the Tona brothers? But if those 2 really participated, he promised to punish them by making them stand guard. And now the main event of the day began. Above, Cosmos was speaking. "Welcome everyone to today's race. Thank you for responding to my call and gathering here. Now the race begins. The first main contestant to enter the arena today was the one who made it to the top 16 last year, the favored one of the sharp pirates, Mentis. Welcoming his opponent is a debuting contestant. Is there something hidden behind that youthful appearance? Let's welcome the young swordsman Paul Mick. When Jin looked at the young man Paul Mick, he recalled something. Did the instructor mention a young guy who had knocked out the captain earlier? At the same time, the battle below had already begun. Mentis was planning to intimidate the young boy by tasting the edge of his blade. Looking at his blade, everyone understood, only for Paul Mick to swiftly sever the head from the body of the pirate with a single strike. Those who are arrogant often meet such fates. In the stands, every gaze was filled with astonishment at this scene. Just moments ago, they mocked the kid for being whiny and still smelling like milk. Who would have thought he was actually a young man hiding his skills, pretending to be an easy target? Captain Cosmos watched in confusion, not understanding what had just happened. Surely those damn pirates must be going crazy by now. As for Jin, he realized that the young man had beheaded his opponent with sword energy in the blink of an eye. Now Jin could guess who was down there. He was Dan Heron, the beloved grandson of Ron. While lost in thought, a familiar sound came from behind, sending chills down my spine. Isn't that Veridin, the troublesome jerk from the Zipples family? And there is Veridin, shouting loudly, because he just scored big. This is what fighting is all about. It's Paul Mick. I've bet my entire fortune on him. Let's go, Paul Mick. The young men nearby echoed in agreement. Seeing that guy winning big like that, why not jump in? Just throw all your land deeds in, you'll definitely triple or quadruple your investment. Jin looked at these people and thought they were beyond help. Then he recalled that Veridin was supposed to be on a mission, which seemed a bit over the top. It would be best to avoid him, as being discovered would be quite a hassle. And what was bound to happen did happen. Veridin seemed to recognize something familiar. Oh, isn't that Jin Runcandel? What are you doing here? In the arena, Dante, under the guise of Paul Mick, also happened to see Veridin waving hello. Isn't that Veridin, the young master of the Zipples family? I can't believe he came all the way to this remote place to cheer for me. So Dante cheerfully waved back at Veridin. But if he knew the truth, Dante would be depressed. At this time, Captain Cosmos came to ask Paul Mick a few words of conversation after the victory. Right now I am quite happy because I have eliminated a potential disaster for the world. I hope that in the next life he will not become an ordinary pirate. Hearing this, it seemed like there would be an intriguing drama to watch. Everyone thought a bunch of pirates would rush in to deal with him. Yet Captain Cosmos placed his hand on his shoulder and said that the answer was very interesting. I really like that. And now, for the next match, the contestants are invited to step into the arena. A few hours later, in room number 13, Jin, after watching all the matches, found that there was no one noteworthy other than Paul Mick. This means he could be sure that he was Dan Heron. He looked very young, but with that swordsmanship, that's the only explanation. Jin was still unsure if he could win against him. If he could use magic and dark energy, it would be quite easy. But now, just relying on swordsmanship alone, it was uncertain. Anyway, he had a fight to find out. According to his calculations, with 3 to 4 matches a day, his round would take place in about 3 days. So from now until then, he would have to endure the darkness here. On Dan's side, his expression seemed quite dazed. This was to be expected, as pirates could kill their opponents while waiting for the match. A few days earlier, at the Zipples family mansion, Veridin Zipples was fiddling with a necklace containing some object. You will gradually see what this object is. An elder nearby reminded him, "This object is very important when needed, so young master, please be more careful." Then the elder continued to ask, "Do you know about the competition among the pirates on the southern island?" Hearing this, he immediately refused, as if he were foolish enough to accept. The elder knew the reason why every year around this time, young master Veridin went missing. He continued, "This time there is information that Dan will participate. He is the future of the Heron family. Therefore, young master should take a trip there and see for yourself the caliber of someone who will be your future opponent." That was a reasonable reason for Veridin to be there. However, if it weren't for that reason, he would still be there. At this moment, Veridin was troubled by his guards trailing behind him. Besides, there hadn't been any interesting matches to watch in recent days. Then he went to the tournament board to see if there was anyone familiar. The first thing that caught Veridin's eye was the name Jin Gray. Wasn't this a fake name he used when he was a temporary flag bearer? This likely meant there would be a match between 2 formidable opponents. Back to Jin, who was in his room. Earlier, he heard the announcement that there were 35 dead and 147 survivors. Only 5 of those died in the battle, while the rest had died outside the arena. Did this mean that those who were skilled were likely to be eliminated while they slept? The past 3 days without sleep had truly been a nightmare. Just as he was lamenting, he heard footsteps approaching. Jin wondered who would dare to approach this place without bothering to hide their presence. It seemed the person was very confident in their abilities. Jin planned to grab his sword to deal with the audacious intruder when he saw Paul Mick, who looked utterly miserable. He, like Jin, had been sleep-deprived for several days. Paul Mick opened his mouth to ask, "Can't you two cooperate?" He asked Jin to keep watch while he slept, and tomorrow he would keep watch for Jin. Just as Jin was about to ask some questions, Paul Mick collapsed on the ground. So Jin had no chance to refuse anymore. He can smell the strong scent of blood on Paul Mick. It seemed he had been disturbed by many people before. At the same time, outside Jin's room, some pirates were sneaking around. Jin stepped out with a gaze full of killing intent, making them a bit nervous. He immediately swung his sword, cutting down a man in front of him and said, "Haven't you heard the rumors around here? Anyone who enters this room must die." One person signaled the halt, stating they only wanted to kill the one named Paul Mick inside. At the same time, someone behind shot a crossbow bolt toward Jin. It seemed that person had just made a critical mistake. And of course, Jin easily dodged these childish antics. He noticed the arrow was laced with poison. "Now I have enough reason to kill you, right? You all are doing everything to kill a child. Do you think you can take responsibility for that?" A few hours later, Paul Mick woke up. He looked surprised to see Jin still standing in front of him. Jin mentioned that the bastards who chased him were under the orders of a one-eyed man. That was the last thing the last one said before dying. They planned to make some money by kidnapping a member of the Run-Kandel family. Hearing this, Paul Mick realized that the young man in front of him had protected him and thanked him profusely. Then Paul Mick laughed, not expecting those people to mistake him for a Run-Kandel, and continued to explain to Jin that he was just a noble from Bement. As for more details, he couldn't say. Jin knew his identity well, so he didn't say anything. Then he rolled into the bedroom, remembering to wake me up before the group stage match 13 started. Jin spoke while half asleep. Dan Heron looked at the boy in front of him and saw that he appeared cold but was ready to protect him, even though it was their first meeting. It seemed he had found a good friend. The following days were filled with intense matches. Paul Mick had to take an entire move to defeat his opponents. Jin's side was the same. He quickly took down his opponents as well. The spectators above were discussing whether Jin Gray or Paul Mick was stronger. Another person said, "No matter how strong Jin Gray is, he cannot compare to someone from the Run-Kandel family." Hearing this, Paul Mick got angry. "Clearly, I am not from the Run-Kandel family." In another corner, some pirates were whispering about the likelihood of those two snotty boys making it to the finals this year. One suggested, "Let's attack them before the battle starts. After all, they are just two boys." At that moment, a loud laugh echoed from outside. The instructor said, "You all should stop. You won't be able to beat them. Jin's nickname is the Grim Reaper, and besides, the two of them are sharing a room. Do you think attacking both at the same time will be effective?" After advising the pirates, the young man left. Hearing this, they felt a chill. For now, they could only hope, as it would be a pity to lose their lives here. In Captain Cosmo's room, the young man immediately reported what had just happened and asked him, "What will you do now? If you let them arrange things this way, the competition will be very dull." Cosmos was furious, with veins bulging on his forehead. "If that's what they want, then I will eliminate the entire program. Anyway, Jin Gray and Paul Mick will be the two who advance to the finals. Let those lowlights face the two kids. They will be fodder for the youngsters." He added, "With those two kids, increase the odds for the rest as high as possible, so they will be sleepless if they don't place bets. And now all matches will proceed at lightning speed." The next day was as lively as ever. Veraden was asking, "I wonder who will be the ultimate winner, the one who is a supernova from the very first match, or the other one who is death itself even before the match begins." The nearby guards immediately chose Paul Mick. They assessed that Paul Mick's swordsmanship was somewhat more skilled. Then they asked the young master in return, "Are you betting on Paul Mick?" "Oh, the young master is betting on Jin Gray. I'm only betting 100,000 gold. He." Hearing this, they questioned, "The odds for betting on Jin Gray are 1 to 3. Even if you win, will those pirates have enough money to pay?" Veraden was still very confident because wasn't Cosmos down there a notorious pirate? He could sell a few islands to pay us back. At this moment, the anticipated battle had begun. Paul Mick, a young swordsmanship talent, would fight Jin Gray, the Reaper of the 13th tournament bracket. Of course, there was no shortage of enthusiastic cheers from Veraden for Jin in the stands. Now, without keeping you waiting any longer, the match may begin. Jin and Dan both entered in a defensive stance. Neither had launched an attack yet as they were gouging their opponent. At that moment, Dan's eyes suddenly became icy. He rushed towards Jin with breathtaking speed. Although overwhelmed by the speed, Jin managed to raise his sword and block the strike. Seeing this, Dan chuckled and said, "I knew these little tricks wouldn't trouble you, so this time I'm going to play seriously." As he spoke, Dan raised his sword high, preparing to strike. "Bring out everything you've got." Jin was not to be outdone and got ready to counter Dan's attack. Soon after, their swords clashed, causing an explosion in the arena. All the spectators watching this scene were wide-eyed in astonishment, not expecting their swordplay to be this powerful. Well, level, the two continued to strike, trying to overwhelm each other. Jin was sure that the first attack earlier was Dan's fastest speed, but now he was only accelerating when necessary, allowing him to allocate his strength reasonably. If that was the case, then he needed to keep up with his speed and fight with increasing ferocity. The pirates above sighed. How could they have imagined witnessing a battle like this here? Vetta now looks more like a boss. He looks down to admire the match between the two future opponents. At this moment, Dan said to Jin, "Unleash the techniques you've been keeping hidden, because soon I'm going to be even faster." This new speed left Jin feeling slightly overwhelmed. And of course, what had to happen happened. He got hit because he couldn't keep up with Dan's new speed. However, Dan was still not overconfident against his opponent, because right after that, Jin returned and gradually adjusted to the pace of the match. Dan also noticed the extraordinary power with the destructive swordsmanship and innate physique to execute it. There was no doubt about it. He had used a pseudonym. This person is Jin Runcandel, the youngest son and the greatest genius of his generation. But this was all over now as he had made a mistake. Dan thought to himself as he launched an attack towards Jin, but just as his sword was about to reach Jin, a fleeting glance from him made Dante instinctively jump back. Everyone above wondered why Paul Mick suddenly retreated when the battle was about to end, but only Paul Mick knew what had happened. At the moment Jin looked his way, he felt as if he had been slashed. He was sure he would be cut by something. Jin berated himself for accidentally releasing a bit of killing intent, but now things were getting more serious. At the same time, he took off his outer coat and said, "Now it's my turn." He swung his sword, forcing Dan to reluctantly defend himself. Dan knew that Jin's strikes were not just straightforward slashes. The force behind each strike was identical, and there were no mistakes whatsoever. Dan thought to himself that he might have lost from the very beginning. Just as Jin raised his sword, preparing to attack, Dan hoped he wouldn't advance any further. "If that's the case, I'll kill you, Jin Runcandel." Then Jin's sword plunged into the ground right in front of Dante. "Are you daring to hesitate in front of me?" Jin asked. "I am Jin Runcandel, so don't disgrace this battle," Dan Heron. Now everything seemed to be going according to script. Jin and Dan both knew that the other understood them well, so the moments ahead would showcase the best of both. Immediately, Jin and Dan continued to clash with each other. There were continuous lightning-fast attacks from both sides, and the injuries sustained were inevitable. At that moment, Jin spotted Dan's opening and swung his sword to knock him back. Immediately following was a strike that could decide everything if Dan made a mistake. However, Dante dodged that attack and countered. Even so, Jin predicted he had reached his limit, but why could he endure that kind of pressure for so long? Dante Heron, he was the once-in-a-century genius of the Heron family, a talent blessed by the gods. However, the heavens do not give anyone everything. He was born with a frail and weak body, something that held back his talent. Perhaps from that point, he had sunk deep into hell due to this Dan curse. Just like Jin had experienced in his previous life, a loneliness and endless darkness, the disappointment of looking at his tiny body, and the struggle in each life and death battle to reach where he belongs.